The NASA administrator who selected Starship for Artemis now says it can't beat China to the moon. Jim Bridenstine claims the probability approaches zero and wants a Defense Production Act program instead. What changed his mind? SpaceX just responded with their most detailed Starship HLS images ever released, revealing the elevator hatch, landing legs, and a massive 600 cubic meter interior. The company also disclosed 49 completed milestones and called Bridenstine's campaign misguided or intentionally misleading. Are these new revelations enough to silence the critics and prove Starship remains the fastest path back to the lunar surface? On October 29th, something unprecedented happened at the American Astronomical Society's Von Braun Space Exploration Symposium. Bridenstine sat on a panel with Charlie Bolden, another former NASA administrator, and together they questioned the very foundation of Artemis. Bridenstine didn't hold back, stating that if America wants to beat China, NASA needs a Defense Production Act kind of program, going all in to build a landing system as quickly as possible with a small team that has authority. Maybe authority put together by an executive order. Does that sound like confidence in Starship? Bolden echoed these concerns, pointing to structural issues and coordination problems within Artemis. Both former administrators then mentioned Blue Origin's Blue Moon lander as a potential alternative. The message was clear. They believe NASA should reconsider its primary reliance on SpaceX. But what evidence are they basing this on? SpaceX's response came swiftly and without apology. The company released a statement that didn't just defend Starship, it went directly after Bridenstine's credibility. Mr. Bridenstine's current campaign against Starship is either misguided or intentionally misleading, the statement read. SpaceX reminded everyone that Bridenstine himself appointed the civil servant team that selected Starship as the best and lowest risk technical option and the lowest price by a wide margin. The company also noted that this decision was reaffirmed even after protests and lawsuits from competing companies delayed the contract for months. If Starship was the right choice then, what's changed now? Here's where the story takes a fascinating turn. Just as this controversy exploded, SpaceX released the most detailed images of Starship HLS the public has ever seen. And these aren't just concept art. They reveal actual hardware decisions that answer critical questions about how astronauts will live and work on the moon. The exterior shows a clean, streamlined design with a single thin black line marking the separation between the fuel tank and crew section. The traditional cargo door is gone, replaced by a square hatch that deploys an elevator system for lunar surface access. Next to this hatch sits a row of small windows for observation. At the base, black landing legs fold out in a mechanism similar to Falcon 9's boosters, but inverted in deployment direction. Why did SpaceX wait until now to reveal these details? Inside, the images show something truly remarkable. The crew cabin spans multiple levels connected by central stairways with a high balcony overlooking large viewing windows. The layout looks professional, organized, and livable, not like a cramped Apollo capsule, but like actual living space. According to SpaceX's documentation, the habitable volume reaches 600 cubic meters, roughly two-thirds the size of the entire International Space Station. The two airlocks alone provide 13 cubic meters each, double the Apollo lunar module's entire volume. Can any competing lander match these capabilities? But volume isn't the real story. Payload capacity is. Starship HLS can deliver 100 metric tons to the lunar surface in its current form, with future versions potentially doubling that to 200 tons. To put this in perspective, a single Starship flight could carry as much cargo as dozens of smaller landers combined. Blue Moon, despite its promise, operates under a traditional design philosophy with smaller payloads and incremental expansion. The question isn't which lander is good, it's which one can actually build a permanent lunar presence. SpaceX also revealed they've completed 49 milestones under the HLS program. These include life support testing, environmental control demonstrations, Orion integration work, and landing leg trials. The HLS capsule itself has been built, equipped with core systems, and is now in final integration. Next up, testing in-space refueling and debuting Starship 5-3 with upgraded Raptor 3 engines. Are these the actions of a program in trouble? While SpaceX fights this political battle, Blue Origin has been making moves of its own. On October 30th, the company conducted a successful static fire test of New Glenn at Cape Canaveral. For 38 seconds, 7 BE-4 engines produced 1,700 tons of thrust. Jeff Bezos and CEO Dave Limp both celebrated the test, noting that engineers extended the burn to simulate landing conditions. The company confirmed all engines performed nominally, a critical milestone after years of BE-4 development struggles. New Glenn's maiden flight is now scheduled for November 9th to 11th, aiming to deploy NASA's Escapade Mars mission and land the first stage booster on an Atlantic drone ship. If successful, this would be Blue Origin's first orbital victory and could earn military certification. Is this why Bridenstine suddenly feels comfortable questioning Starship? But here's what the critics are missing. Elon Musk recently revealed a vision that goes far beyond simply landing astronauts and returning home. Responding to suggestions that Blue Origin might reach the moon first, Musk wrote on X, "A permanently crewed lunar science base would be far more impressive than a repeat of what was already done incredibly well by Apollo in 1969. This isn't about planting flags anymore. The real race is for permanence." Starship's true advantage becomes obvious when you consider long-term presence. Standing over 50 meters tall and 9 meters in diameter, with more than 1,000 cubic meters of internal cargo volume, Starship can carry not just astronauts, but the actual infrastructure needed to build a base. A single flight could deliver power systems, laboratories, and living quarters that would take dozens of traditional missions to ferry piece by piece. Future Starship versions could make this even more dramatic. What if you didn't even need to unload everything? Here's where Musk's thinking gets radical. By transitioning from vertical landing to horizontal positioning on the surface, Starship itself could become a moon base. Multiple landed starships could form sections of a growing base complex, each one providing living quarters, laboratories, storage areas, and potentially greenhouses for food production. Because Starship HLS already incorporates advanced environmental control, thermal protection, and power management, these converted habitats would be more sophisticated than any previous lunar modules. Traditional base construction requires multiple missions to deliver and assemble separate habitat modules, each costly and risky. Converting Starship removes most of that complexity. Does this change the calculation on which approach actually saves time and money? The calendar shows why this matters. It's already late 2024, leaving less than 2 years before Artemis 3's scheduled launch. For SpaceX to stay on track, they must conduct an early Starship HLS prototype launch within months, essential not just for Artemis 3, but for the uncrewed lunar landing demonstration NASA requires by the end of next year. Both flights are critical milestones that will validate spacecraft systems and prove readiness for human missions. This demanding schedule forces SpaceX to achieve several major technical goals during upcoming launches. Mastering orbital landing procedures, performing live payload deployment, and perfecting in-space refueling. That last one is crucial. The refueling system allows one Starship to transfer propellant to another while in orbit, providing the fuel needed for deep space missions. Without this, Starship cannot perform long-duration lunar or interplanetary flights. Many see this as the program's biggest hurdle, with critics doubting it can be mastered in time. Yet Musk and Gwynne Shotwell remain confident, comparing the task to Dragon's flawless ISS dockings, a skill SpaceX perfected years ago. There's another factor that could reshape everything: NASA leadership. Jared Isaacman, the private astronaut who commanded Inspiration 4 and Polaris Dawn, has emerged as a potential candidate for NASA administrator with backing from former astronauts and Musk himself. If appointed, Isaacman would likely continue prioritizing beating China to the moon, but his leadership style would emphasize coordination over chaotic competition. Given his close working relationship with SpaceX and first-hand experience flying their vehicles, his appointment could strengthen Starship's role within Artemis. Would that be the right move, or would it appear too favorable to one company? So here's where we stand. A former NASA administrator who once championed Starship now publicly doubts it can succeed. SpaceX responded not with promises but with evidence: 49 completed milestones, detailed interior designs, and a payload capacity no other lander can match. Blue Origin successfully fired New Glenn's engines, proving they're a serious competitor. And China continues advancing their own lunar program with no signs of slowing down. The next 12 months will reveal everything. SpaceX must demonstrate orbital refueling, launch the HLS prototype, and prove they can meet NASA's timeline. Bridenstine's criticism, whether fair or motivated by other factors, has put enormous pressure on the program. But that pressure might be exactly what SpaceX needs. This company has a history of achieving what critics call impossible: landing orbital boosters, building the world's most powerful operational rocket, and making spaceflight dramatically cheaper. The stakes extend beyond national pride. Whoever establishes permanent infrastructure on the moon first will shape humanity's future in space for decades. Starship's ability to convert itself into lunar habitats could make that permanence possible years faster than traditional approaches, but only if SpaceX can execute flawlessly under this intense scrutiny. What do you think? Can SpaceX silence the doubters and prove Starship is still the fastest path to a permanent lunar presence? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit that like button and subscribe to New Space Review for more in-depth coverage of humanity's return to the moon. The next chapter of this story unfolds soon, and you won't want to miss it.